Let's get stuck into the week's biggest stories with National Senator Matt Canavan and Pauline Hanson, One Nation's Chief of Staff James Ashby. Great to see you both. Now, I want to play you this clip of a Labor woman talking about coal and Gina Rinehart. Have a listen.
Let me tell you a very quick story about some very powerful people. This is Gina Rinehart, multi-billionaire mining magnate. See, Gina has a problem. Gina knows that coal and gas aren't part of the future of Australia's energy grid. That's bad news for, yep, you guessed it, her bank account. So you see, Gina and this guy here, Peter Dutton, came up with a very cunning plan.
So, guys, that was Griffith's candidate, Labor's candidate for Griffith, Renee Coffey, basically banging on the same old stuff about coal and gas and demonising it. Yet we find out from Britain they've just had a huge bombshell announcement, a secret report saying that net zero is going to impoverish, hits the poorest people worst and lowers GDP by at least 10%. Matt Canavan, your thoughts?
Well, Rowan, this just shows that the Labor Party likes to talk about rich people, but it does nothing to help poor people. It's very sad because the Labor Party was established to help those less fortunate than ours, than ourselves. But I think the Labor elders would be turning in their graves seeing the current crop of Labor politicians who do nothing to help the most downtrodden in our society. I mean, the reality is the working class of this society are being crushed, of Australia, are being crushed. Australian working class people are being crushed by the higher prices in our supermarkets, higher energy bills that turn up every quarter, and that is a direct consequence of the very thing that Ms Coffey was talking about. The very fact that the Labor Party has turned its back on the coal workers, the gas workers of this country and the cheap energy resources they produce has led to the massive increase, skyrocketing increase in prices for everything. I've been running a bit of a campaign this week just showing how everyday items have gone through the roof. I mean, a cheeseburger at Macca's costs $5.40. I mean, I'm old enough to remember, Rowan, when you used to get a whole value meal for that.
That's right.
And now it's over $5 just for a cheeseburger. And that's up 44%. It's up 44% since Anthony Albanese got elected. And a big part of this is the higher energy prices that Anthony Albanese is not just making you pay, but he's making all the businesses in Australia pay too. And they got to pass that on to you.
So have a listen, James, to this unbelievable report out of the UK, which was raised in the British Parliament. Have a listen to Richard Tice talking about this was a secret report leaked out of Whitehall about net zero. Have a listen.
My constituents in Boston and Skegness will be concerned by reports in the media this morning about a government report that shows that the costs of net zero will impact negatively on GDP by 2030 by some 10%, will increase national debt, increase the risk of a financial crisis and will hit the poorest the hardest.
So, James, let me ask you this. This is the British parliamentary report, a Whitehall report. It was Britain that talked Scott Morrison into signing up to net zero. Kemi Badenoch, the Conservative leader who was a net zero fan, she's now this week walked away from net zero. So the very people that twisted the arm of Scott Morrison to sign us up to net zero are now abandoning net zero politically. Why on earth are we still in it, James?
Well, it's a good question. Peter Dutton should have the courage, and I know you've said this in the past, Rowan. I 100% agree with you. I think it's time that Peter Dutton comes out and says, like Matt Canavan has, he's one of the few National Party members who don't believe in net zero. However, they supported Scott Morrison at that time to go to Glasgow and say, yeah, we're all on board. Well, guess what? It's hurt so many families across this country, and that's why we're going backwards at a rapid rate of nights. That's why electricity prices, not just on the household, have gone up, but on every single retailer, supplier out there that have got cold rooms, where if you go to Woolworths and Coles, guess what? They're just passing it on to you. So we're all feeling the impacts of this net zero rubbish. It's a scandal, it's a scam, and slowly but surely, the rest of the world is waking up to it. Trump had the courage. I think others, like here in Australia, will have the guts, like One Nation, to say, we're out. If we hold that balance of power in the next parliament, I can tell you one thing, Rowan, we're going to be having some serious discussions with Dutton, or if that be a Labor government again. We've got to get out of this, and if we can hold their feet to the flames and say, Australia's out, we'll do it. We'll force the next government.
Well, my prediction, Matt, is that the events will force Australia to abandon Paris and net zero within 18 months, I would say, of the next, whoever wins government. I certainly hope it's the coalition that is in power, and I certainly hope that One Nation are there making sure that you guys do abandon Paris. Even the EVs manufacturer from Mitsubishi, one of the CEOs of Mitsubishi, has come out and said, no, this EV thing is madness, Matt. But listen, I want to talk now about America, where they have a ban, where Donald Trump this morning got rid of the Department of Education and was widely applauded for doing so. A brilliant stunt. He had a bunch of kids there all signing the executive orders as he signed his executive order. Have a look.
Okay.
And this is all about returning education to the states. Matt, we desperately need to do the same thing here. Get rid of the boffins in Canberra who drain money from where it should be and return education to the states where it belongs, closer to the parents and families.
Well, look, our system is very different, Rowan. I mean, President Trump did promise to do this, as many other of his predecessors before. So congratulations to him for implementing a promise. So if only our politicians would do the same and deliver on their $275 promise to lower electricity bills. That would be great. That would be a great start. Look, our system is different, as I say. I don't want to see the federal government leave the education space. For example, I think if we did that, we've got a bunch of largely left-wing governments around the countries at the state level right now. Can you imagine where our curricula would go? The only thing holding it back is that there's some discipline from the federal government in the curriculum, in NAPLAN testing. NAPLAN testing would probably be gone if we gave it back to the states. So I'm about outcomes. I'm about delivering for Australians. And yes, for sure, we need to do a lot to improve our education standards in this country. But this is one leaf in Donald Trump's book I won't be pulling out for this country.
James, should Peter Dutton have apologised for using the term limp-wristed about the government? What are your thoughts?
Look, you see these off-the-cuff remarks made by politicians on a regular basis, and no, I don't think he should have apologised. It's one of those things that, look, Anthony Albanese's made faux-pas as well, particularly when he was on the floor of Parliament in recent months, where he accused the coalition of having Tourette's, if you remember, during a question time. They're things that are said. Look, for him to apologise, look, it nipped it in the bud very quickly. Did he mean anything by it? No. So I think these are the sorts of games that will be played by Labor ahead of the election. I thought his speech yesterday was very good. It's just a shame that there's some of those wokes on the left that just love to pick out, you know, little key words and throw it down Dutton's, or throw it in Dutton's face and try and make out he's some bad guy. Limp-wristed, we know what it means. It's certainly not offensive in my view anyway.
Matt, just very briefly, would you agree? I mean, are we going to lose all our Aussie larrikin language? Yes, please, Matt.
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it instructive, though, that some of these Labor politicians seem more angry at Peter Dutton using an Australian slang word than the Chinese Navy doing live fire exercises right off our borders?
Yeah.
Perfectly said. What a great comment there. Matt Canavan from the Nationals, Senator there, and James Ashby from One Nation. Thanks so much for both of you for coming on The World According to Rowan Dean. Aren't they both